Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Rodeo podcast because I just did one yesterday, but we decided to do this one today as well. I have Kavin with me, and I have Mike Hruby with me. Many of you have probably seen these two on the podcast before, but if you haven't, stick around. You're going to get to know them here in the next little bit. And we're going to specifically talk about what is happening in New Jersey. And as I was telling some other people just in passing and on another video earlier, a couple days ago, don't think this can't affect your state as we talk about this. But it seems like quite the overreach, in my opinion. I'm against it anyway, but it seems like just ridiculous. From what Kim's wrote and from what I've read and from what Mike has said, like hopefully we get as much info as we can out in the next hour. So welcome, everybody, and welcome, Mike and Kim. And
thanks, Steve. Hi, Kim.
Hi, guys.
And so, Kim, I guess let's start with you and because you're in Jersey. So,
I am. If you can't tell from my accent, born and raised here down in New Jersey.
So where do we start? I mean, because I was asking you before we started, do we just quickly talk about 2019?
Yeah, so let's explain to people what's going on. And everybody who's been following this a bit, I think will get the gist pretty quick. I know you cover this a lot on your show, Steve. You do a great job with that. Everybody knows what California's Assembly Bill 5 is. AB 5, absolute disaster out in California, the whole nightmare with Prop 22, all the fighting and arguing and everything. AB 5 was signed into law in September of 2019. Right after that happened, it was supposed to kick off a nationwide rollout in other blue states of copycat laws. The next state was my state of New Jersey. They introduced a copycat bill, and long story short, it led to enormous public outcry that we helped to create. We saw what was starting to happen in California. All we really had back then was anecdotal evidence because it was the law hadn't even gone into effect yet. California didn't go into effect until January 2020. But by December of 2019, we already knew people were losing their contracts, losing their clients. We knew what AB 5 was starting to do, and we didn't want it to happen to us. So we created this grassroots nonpartisan coalition called Fight for Freelancers. It was started by me and a bunch of my friends who were freelance writers and editors. And we just started blanketing the state with op-eds. We really, to be honest, had no idea what we were doing, but we just were angry and we didn't want to lose our livelihoods. And the fact that we made noise publicly got a lot of people to come join our Facebook group. And then it became this swirl to the point that when they held the hearing in the Trenton State House in December of 2019 about this bill, it was wall-to-wall standing room only with writers, truckers, bakers, translator, you name it. It was packed. The lawmakers didn't know what to do. It went on for more than 4 hours. And it was, I think there were 4 people who testified for the bill. Everybody else there was testifying against it. And it got a little rowdy a couple times. People were angry. People were crying while testifying. It was horrible. And thankfully, that bill went down. And we thought, okay, what the hell was that? I'm glad that's over. Let's move on with our lives. It's the holidays, let's move on. And the day after that, we woke up to a story in The Intercept that said, Congress is going to move the PRO Act containing this same exact ABC test from California's AB 5, same exact regulatory language. So since then, for the past 5 years, we have been fighting our guts out at the federal level to stop this at the federal level. And so far we have. We have managed to keep it out of federal legislation, which has not been easy. The Biden-Harris Labor Department did get a rule through. I am among the plaintiffs in numerous lawsuits that were filed against that rule, which as of today, the newly staffed Labor Department in the Trump-Vance administration has signaled that they are looking at rescinding. They have not stated specifically what they're going to do yet, but they're signaling that they're going to deal with the problem at the rulemaking level. And so And then just this morning, Congress announced there's going to be a hearing next week called Empowering the Modern Worker, which is supposed to include testimony about a bill that California Congressman Kevin Kiley, our hero, cape and tights level hero, has introduced to try to protect everybody at the federal level with legislation. So everything's moving in the right direction finally at the federal level to get this fixed from a regulatory rulemaking standpoint at the Federal Department of Labor and from a legislative standpoint in Congress. Just as all that is happening, the yin yangs down in Trenton in New Jersey at the Department of Labor said, hey, we're going to just make our own rule now too. And now they are saying, according to the attorney analysis I have seen online, and I know Mike is going to get in depth about this because I have to be careful what I say about things as a plaintiff in one of these lawsuits when you get into the nitty gritty of this stuff. But what the lawyers are writing online is, I'll just read you my favorite line from one of these lawyers. He's a top labor lawyer, and he says, what this proposed rule would do, it would not merely tilt the balance in favor of employee status and against legitimate independent contractors, but rather lead to the elimination of all independent contractors in New Jersey. The title of this lawyer's analysis, this top lawyer's analysis, is that the Garden State may soon become even less hospitable to independent contractors than the Golden State. So just when we thought we had everything finally moving in the right direction and sorted out at the federal level and in New Jersey, boom, here comes the state of New Jersey. We are already in the 60-day public comment period. They can just impose this and do it this summer. And then we're going to have to duke it out and try one of several avenues we have identified to try and deal with these morons later.
So I think I put this on, I know I put this on a post on Twitter, and I think both of you guys saw it. I know Kim did. I put out a question that I've asked many times. And I put it real harsh. Can anybody name one thing that AB5 did positive? And I'm not saying to contradict the negative, just one thing that it did positive. One thing. Did it create one job? And yeah, it probably did. But did it create one job? Did it do anything that it was supposed to? Because how do the unions win if they kill off independent contractors? And those contractors like you, Kim, you worked for publications, you did this, you built a career, you built a niche. Mike has, I have been doing the same thing. And then now you don't want a boss. And you're not going to go back to having a boss. You're not going to go back to taking a W-2 job just because the state does something like that. I know you'll find some way to do something else.
Well, and also the notion that all my clients are going to magically create traditional jobs is insane. I mean, we have way more than anecdotal evidence now of what happened in California. Economist Leah Palagashvili has done a couple of studies. The one specific to AB5 showed self-employment went down by 10.5%. Overall employment dropped by more than 4%. Her theory on that is that when you make it impossible for the small businesses to work with independent contractors, the small businesses go down too, and they can't get work done, and then they lose the traditional jobs too. That's one of her theories on that. Yep. We also have Federal Bureau of Labor statistics data showing that in California, since AB5 went into effect, union membership went down as a percentage of total employment. So you've got maybe there were some jobs created, but I have seen no reports from the people who pushed AB5, no documented anything about that. I am personally familiar with a writer who got a full-time job after AB5 went into effect. I'm sure there are others, but the widespread, most predominant effect has been independent contractors getting hurt. That is widely documented now.
I can think of one example of how.
I thought you were going to say one job.
No, not a job, not a job, a condition. And that is that AB5 and its related bills in the states and the regulation have helped everyone in the country who is an adult understand how many people rely on self-employment for some or all of their income. In Massachusetts, where this whole battle began in 2004 with a new form of the stricter ABC test under Marty Walsh, the union's standard line was to say, oh, there aren't very many people. This doesn't really affect very many people at all. And now it's 40% of the workforce is growing. And literally the economy is just going to tank if you take all of that out. And it's not going to be substituted. They're not going to hire these people full time. That won't happen. And especially with rules like the regulation that's likely to go into effect in New Jersey.
And it's important to note, to add to that, Steve, that what California did, as everybody knows, there was a second bill passed less than a year later, Prop 22 passed less than a year later. There was a lot of professions that got partial or full exemptions. And I know that you've had Karen Anderson from Freelancers Against AB5 on your show. She's talked about how those exemptions are problematic, but they do exist. They have allowed some people in California to continue earning income as independent contractors. The New Jersey rule that's being proposed has no exemptions in it.
So, yeah. And on that, how is it going to work for lawyers and anesthesiologists and all those people that got immediate carve-outs?
I mean, to me, it seems like the state policymakers are throwing an economic bomb into a country club next to a yacht marina. Talk about angering the wrong people, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it just seems nuts.
I mean, because you're obviously not for the working people that want to make their own businesses, but now you're gonna. I mean, you can't. The lawyer. If you don't let lawyers have a carve out, you're gonna have every one of them sue you.
Let's hope so. From your lips, baby.
But that's. I mean, like, why would they even bother? Not even if they do push for this, why would they not have carve outs? And why would they announce it that way? There's not going to be any exceptions.
I think the bigger question is, why on earth would you do carve-outs when you saw what a disaster that was in California? I mean, there was just a report released a couple months ago by members of the California Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. It was a scathing report about how that exemption process was wildly unfair and just horribly wrong. There's everything about this is just wrong. We know what happens when you do this kind of policy making. We know the primary effects are bad. We know the best case scenario coming next is a scrum for exemptions. That's going to be a nightmare scenario. This is nuts.
The best explanation I can think of is that the California was legislation, and in New Jersey this is regulation. And the difference is that in California, you could take your organized nonprofit membership group and get money from your members, special contributions or levy, and take that and try to buy the support or induce or campaign finance the members of the legislature who actually can directly change the law. And California was very productive of a lot of contributions made on behalf of seeking exemptions from AB5. There isn't that alleyway here because it was proposed as a regulation, and the regulators are much less sensitive to the possibility of earning money because they really shouldn't, and I'm sure many of them don't make money off of the demand for changes. If this had been legislative in New Jersey, I believe the New Jersey legislators would have provided one or two like obvious medical, legal, dental sort of exceptions, as we used the word chum before, to attract other people demanding parallel and equivalent protection from this bill.
Not to mention the administration that's doing this. It's the administration of our governor, Phil Murphy. This is an election year in New Jersey, and he's term limited. He's out in November. So they're dropping this and then walking out the door is what they're doing.
Is he term limited out?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So they're doing this and they're walking out the door in November. Well, I guess in January when the
right.
Is the timetable extremely fast tracked here?
Yeah, you got a 60-day comment period, which we're in, and it ends on July 4th, which, fun fact, the government's not open on July 4th. It's a holiday. But after that, the state is supposed to review all the public comments and just thoughtfully consider what everyone says and make some decisions. And what do we really think is going to happen there? Come on.
So before I move to Mike here, I do want to say that in the California one, I feel, and I've always said this, I feel like AB5 was initially a net to catch gig workers, gig app workers, gig app platform workers, rideshare delivery. And I feel like they said, let's just get everybody. And then it became, oh, they're going to form the Flex Association and raise $200 million to fight us. And then they had, we'll get it on the ballot to vote. They got Prop 22 to pass through. So the ones they initially went after got out. And they still went after everybody else. But in this, they're specifically doing something California never did, which is mentioning that before it happens. They're mentioning rideshare drivers and delivery drivers. And they're saying, you are right, you're in this.
The New Jersey does a little bit of that.
Well, that's that's what I mean. I mean, New Jersey's the one say California never said it before AB5. They just kind of said all independent contractors. But here, I've been reading articles that say, that start with this is coming after rideshare and delivery.
In the proposed wording of what would become the regulation, official regulation, there are efforts in the B prong to show examples of businesses that would be or would not be subject to the B prong changes that they are making in this proposal. And what was interesting was it just so happens that some of the most appetizing organizing opportunities are given as examples of what will be considered subject to the enhanced B prong. And I thought there were included drywall, which is in construction, and gig driving is specifically mentioned, in engaging the services of a driver to transport riders of the transportation network company, et cetera. The services performed by the driver are not likely outside of the transportation network's usual course of business. This is really bad regulation.
I think it's all three. I don't think app-based gig workers can pass any of them. It's always the B prong, but A is you're free and clear from the hiring entity. No, you're not. You can be, but they tell you which route to take. They tell you where to go, what time you have to be there. They penalize you with these fake scores and stats. And, oh, you're a platinum tier now because you take 80% of the acceptance rate isn't a thing for independent contractors. Your performance is a thing between you and your contractor. I know a person who was audited in Oregon as a rideshare driver, and the state auditor asked them for all 7,000 rides that they did that year. And they said, ask Uber. I don't have them. And they said, you're the contractor. That's on you. He actually got fined heavily.
The individual, in what state was that?
Oregon.
Oh, okay.
So, my point is like,
Blue state.
I can't, if somebody came to me and said, show me all the gigs you did last year, I can't. I could go through a bunch, but I can't. I don't
even think I could tell you all the articles I wrote. I could go back and look at invoices, I guess, but I couldn't remember if you asked me.
I think if you're a gig driver doing 25 rides a day of people you don't even know that are just being passed along by a dispatch algorithm. My question was, why aren't you just asking Uber? You know where the information is. You really want it. Go get it.
What's different about prong A is what you're talking about is prong A of this ABC test.
Yeah.
What I read, what I have on my screen in front of me, I'm going to read it directly. This is a top labor attorney, Richard Reibstein, here in the state. He wrote, one of the most objectionable provisions dealing with prong A, requiring compliance with applicable laws. He says the proposed regulation pertaining to prong A departs in a dramatic manner from virtually every other test for independent contractor status under federal law and the laws in every state. because what he writes is the services that almost all independent contractors provide are typically governed by a number of laws. But the regulation, as he writes, seems to regard a commonplace requirement found in almost every independent contractor agreement, a clause requiring the contractor to comply with all applicable laws, as a form of direction and control. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
That is a completely false statement, although the attorney is dead right in his assessment of it. That is, to saying that you've got to wear a safety helmet on a construction project does not make that a direction and control for how to do the work. So the state regulation proposal.
No, that's a PPE requirement for anybody to go within the.
I think about it. I'm a freelance writer. I don't know that I've signed a contract in 20 years that didn't have a clause about libel law saying you hereby promise you're not going to libel anybody.
Right, and that the libel law is that is included in the direction and control prohibition. What the new prong A will do is drive any intelligent, counsel advised client away from independent contracting, and these guys know it, because I don't think the New Jersey regulators wrote this bill. I think this was written elsewhere, and I think it was transported by a friendly top of the or agency hands into the into New Jersey labor apparatus. This is a very, very sophisticated destruction. This is like improvised explosive devices. And what they've done is they've taken something that a buyer has to require in order to control their own liability and to control both to customers and to the people that they work with. And they're eliminating the buyer's ability to require that as a condition of actually accomplishing the work. So I believe it's false in its premise and grossly unwise in its requirement. And I have a hard time thinking it's going to survive, but it's only one prong.
But okay, let's move to B prong, because I know Kim has it in front of her, and this is where anybody who does, like, if you're a freelancer, you're a writer, you're self-employed, of course, listen, this affects you, but like, if you're a gig worker, listen to this B prong. You're going to immediately see you don't pass it. In no way will you ever pass it.
What I can do is read from this attorney analysis. This isn't my personal opinion. This
right.
This attorney wrote.
And again, guys, Kim is tied up in some other things, so she has to be careful what she says.
Against the federal government in an independent contractor lawsuit, so I got to watch it. But this is what the attorney wrote. One of the most objectionable provisions dealing with B prong, the customer's residence or business location as a hiring entity's, quote, place of business. What he writes is that the proposed regulation, I'm quoting him now, takes an extraordinarily expansive view of the second part of B prong. It states that a hiring party's place of business not only includes locations where the enterprise has a physical plant or conducts an integral part of its business, but also includes locations outside of the putative employer's physical plant, where services performed by the individual are an essential component of, rather than ancillary to, the putative employer's business. He goes on to say, it's unclear what those words essential or ancillary mean in the context of the proposed regulation. And then a bit later, he gives the example of a contracted worker who's engaged by a carpet sales business to install carpet at a residence of the carpet company's customers. Each of the customer locations are also the hiring party's place of business if the carpet installation is an essential component. What the attorney writes, and this is a direct quote again, this view of the second part of the B prong almost entirely eviscerates any chance for most independent contractors and companies using their services from establishing the worker's independent contractor status.
So I need to know this. So, I mean, the simple one was, so for you drivers out there, especially, like I'll say, what it is you can't do like Uber rideshare. I know it has Uber Eats too. So let's pick on Lyft. They just do rideshare. Lyft, rideshare. You can't do Lyft because their regular business is rideshare. So if you're a rideshare driver, you can't do rideshare. You could be a plumber and go fix the toilets at the Lyft office, but you can't. And this is the old one. So why even deepen that? Because why even say outside of the building? What was the reason to even make this sound like that? Because they've already said if you do what we do, you can't be a contractor.
I would ask Mike that question.
There are a bunch of things going on in these questions. First of all, the B prong originally had two parts, and the surviving part is the outside of all the places of business, and then there was an or clause, and as well, and most people passed that. Such as something like if they had their own place of business, then they weren't working for the main place of business of the buyer, and they've changed.
Which is the C prong, though.
No, that's an independently organized.
Oh, I thought it was that you're in a specialized trade. So if I'm a rideshare driver, I got my own business. But if I don't, and I'm only working for Uber or Lyft.
That is let me. This is really complicated because this gets into the history of the legislation. The ABC test is 87 years old or something like that, and it's been updated a couple of times in Massachusetts, most recently in 2004, and got a lot stricter. It's had in 2004 they removed this second part, and I'm trying to find that report.
Instead of that, maybe I could reword the question. Is this just making sure, is this just like bulletproofing the building a second time to make sure there's no way that anybody can screw with the law? Is that what they're kind of doing in essence?
Yes. The word eviscerate is pretty strong in that attorney.
Yes. In Kim, in all due respect, the attorney and I, working separately, made the same mistake first time around. I want to go back to the sentence that deals with this. It's on page 27 if you're following along. The place of business where if the carpet's installed at the customer's residence, and then there's a gap, the service of carpet installation was not an essential component of the carpet sales business. That is, the showroom where the carpet sales business displayed and sold carpet was its physical plant. The optional service of carpet installation was ancillary, there's that word that shouldn't be there, to, rather than an essential component of the putative employer's business of carpet sales, and therefore the residences of the carpet sales business's customers were not among the carpet sales business's place of business.
But I guarantee you any carpet business isn't going to say, hey, you can buy carpet from us and then we can hook you up with a contractor, because they do all that in one thing.
They actually do that in Massachusetts, although it's the same, it's the same thing. It's just billed as, a bunch of guys in a panel truck loading and unloading rolls of
right. But I mean, like, I think that they, just like a lot of other things, they take their cut of the installation portion too. So of course they're building that into the thing. That's why you see, hey, you can do a whole room for $99.
Right.
But it's really $700 when we add in the installation, like, come on.
And then there's a jingle.
Yeah.
There's a jingle.
I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm just, this was defeated. I mean, I know, Mike, you were talking pretty heavily today on your podcast. By the way, check out, they're in the show notes. Kim Kavin has a Substack. Both these guys are on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, check them out. And Mike has a podcast too here on YouTube, Be My Own Boss Podcast. And he was talking today about this stuff and pretty harshly about a specific person. So I guess before Mike, if we're going to talk about that, Kim, are you feeling like this is more threatening than the last time?
I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and what I can see in front of me, and maybe I'm missing something because people are still trying to figure it out. I see 5 potential paths to deal with this right now. Path number 1 is we do what we did last time. We start making a lot of noise in the media. We're good at that. And we create enough public pressure that our state legislature then pressures the Labor Department to stop what it's doing. It is possible that that could work in an election year. We'll see. Second thing that could happen is we have this election coming in November. Right now, we've got a GOP candidate for governor whose most recent internal poll had him up something over 30%. And President Trump just endorsed him, I think, yesterday. So odds are he's going to be the Republican nominee. I went and found him at a campaign event 2 weekends ago, right after this happened, and pulled him aside. And he understands this issue. He used to actually be a publisher who hired freelance writers. So he came out publicly and already committed that if he's elected governor, he'll just undo the rule the way they're trying to do at the federal level now. He'll do the same thing here in the state. So that's pathway number 2. Pathway number 3, I mentioned at
so
the
even
top,
if it got fast tracked and passed,
he can undo it. Yeah. All this takes time. It doesn't happen, but yeah, he's come out publicly and said he would. Option 3, I mentioned at the top of the show, Congress has just announced today that they're holding a hearing next week on the Modern Worker Empowerment Act, which is supposed to address this at the federal level. It would be nice if Congress added a clause in there that preempts this kind of thing in the states. We can ask them. We can try. Number 4, we wait for the election to end. There'll be a new legislature coming in 2026. We can try to get a law passed that overrides the rulemaking at the Department of Labor. Again, this is going to take time. It's going to be hard. And then the 5th option I see is the same thing at the federal level that we had to do is sue them. Eventually you hire some lawyers and you sue the Department of Labor at the state level too. But again, now you're talking years of arguing in the courts and trying to fix the mess. So those are the 5 pathways I can see. Maybe I'm missing something. I am hopeful that the scaring the hell out of them in the press will help us at least somewhat again, because it worked pretty well last time.
I'm not as familiar with your state and its elections. How often do they turn to a Republican?
We are a blue state, trifecta control of Democrats. However, in the last election, this same guy who's running on the Republican side got way closer than anybody thought he would. He was within just a couple of points, and it kind of shocked the nation. So the Republicans are feeling pretty encouraged, and we'll see what happens next.
So, but I mean, like in the last 5 elections, have you had one in the last 5?
We had Chris Christie was a Republican. When did he leave office? Was there anybody between him and Murphy? I'd have to go back and look. We're a blue state. We're traditionally a blue state.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, am I right in saying that you're a pretty big union state?
Yes, we are.
Yes. The public sector is 58% unionized, and the private sector is 8% unionized, which is 30% more than the national average for the private sector. So there are a lot of big employers there, you know, the oil companies, the finance. There are a lot of big, and their lower ranks are often organized by public-private sector unions. Like
so, Mike, since she was I think she was kind of touching on some things you were talking about in the podcast.
Yes.
You want to re-ramp yourself up again and get heated about that? And just let me know if you need the diagram. I'll pull it up.
Well, I did a little deep dive into Mr. Robert Asaro Angelo's background. Fascinating guy. He's
our labor commissioner, our state labor commissioner.
He's a union household lifer, and he has according to his bio, if you try to piece it together, he has never held a private sector job. He's never been an employer. He has never had a payroll himself or met a payroll on his own dollar. He's never sold anything in sales, never been in marketing, has no clue about business plans, absolutely no exposure to risk and the private sector. His entire income has come from either union revenue or from government, and he has not had to meet a dime of responsibility, obligation with his own money. And he's not particularly an idea guy. So almost every independent contractor has an idea. They have an idea of what they can become, or that something they can do different or better or in more ways for their clients, and they have a vision. There is no evidence of that in this guy's background, especially the risk-taking and the struggle. For instance, moms with kids have a struggle that this guy cannot imagine trying to deal with clients and making business sense, and having a kid's schedule and sniffle schedules in school. It's unimaginable that this man can have any identification with the 1.7 million people whose livelihood he has officially proposed to end. It's unimaginable. There are twice as many independent contractors in New Jersey as there are union members. And so he's dealing from a minority hand, and they're trying to for a grab at control of this much bigger sector with tremendous personal damage coming. He is not prepared for that emotionally in any way. So I think Kim, with her part one, I think, Kim, that's easily the best first path, and to show how confusing this law is, and it's badly written, deliberate, phrasing and long sentences. This guy, that's on this guy's nickel. He proposed this. Not a word of this failed to have his attention. So I've been doing a deep dive into it. I cannot see that his. I think he's doing what he was been told to do by others that we don't see. I don't see him coming up. There's nothing in his background that would tell you he's the right guy to rewrite the ABC test in 2 prongs and come up with something significantly worse than we enjoy in California and in certain blue states like Massachusetts.
Aren't we used to this though? I'm being honest. Aren't we used to the absolute wrong person being in charge of a department? Oh,
you mean with Julie Sue?
I was even going back to Lorena.
Oh,
let's throw a dart and let's talk about somebody, because honestly, like Lorena she had nobody's interest at heart. Actually, she doesn't have a heart, so it's hard to talk about that. But she's good at blocking people on Twitter.
That kind of personality with impossibly low personal empathy seems to be what they recruit from on the other side. I think if you want to see cold-blooded, you should go to the National Employment Law Project and look at some of the personalities who lead that. I swear these people have been boiled for months. They're just like pieces of leather. They hate employment opportunities. They just hate them. I can't explain it any other way.
I see John's question there on the screen. Is New Jersey's labor commissioner elected or appointed? Appointed, I believe.
Appointed, yes.
So that's why this happens, because I always wonder why you putting somebody in charge that literally is the 180 degree of who should be in there.
I think that Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, but union power helped elect Phil as governor. It's Phil Murphy, right? And I think he was told, take this guy. He's the union proposal. He's a perfect choice from the union standpoint, because he won't ever be bothered by a tinge of conscience or some sort of interpretation of logic, like, why am I doing it this way? This is, I have to hear from these people. These are, Asaro Angelo was not elected. He's appointed. So he never had to go to the public and even imitate empathy.
We definitely have a lot of powerful union people. Back in 2019, when the AB5 copycat legislation was introduced, the primary sponsor of that bill was a guy named Steve Sweeney, who at the time was our state Senate president and the highest ranking graduate of the AFL-CIO labor candidates school. And after this bill happened and a couple other things happened that really angered people in the state of New Jersey, he got thrown out of office in the next election. Voters replaced him with a truck driver from the furniture store, Raymore and Flanagan.
I clearly remember that loss. That was a big shock to everybody.
He's running for governor now. He was on my TV this morning when I was eating my cornflakes. And
who, Sweeney?
Yes, he would like to be our next governor. He's running for the Democratic nomination for governor.
How does he look? How does the polling look initially?
His numbers are in the toilet.
So, I mean, and I'm also laughing at John's comment here because I've watched this video many times of Kim. For those of you that don't know, actually, Kim does have a YouTube channel. She just doesn't put much on it. But there's some things up there that you should see. I think it's just at Kim Kavin.
I don't even know what it is now.
Yeah, it might have some numbers after it. So I'll find it and I'll put it beneath.
I see. I'm looking at this. Kim had to sit next to the NELP candidate. I remember that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I remember Kim saying,
coming in.
She had a comment where I could tell you got. Well, Kim got a little
fly right by this gal, and she's looking at you like she's a hard-boiled egg, and you can't believe that you're actually talking to these people on a one-to-one basis and relating facts. She's just like, ugh, this is so gross.
So for those that already haven't picked up or don't know from watching Kim on other lives with me, she's very fluent in her speaking. So she's very good at that. I saw the only gap I've ever seen Kim make was at that. And it wasn't even a gap. She was like, this person. I felt like you were just like, I don't even know what to call you.
I was trying not to curse. What was that? Congress.
I remember that because I remember that was the only pause. You're like,
I don't remember my exact words, but I said something like, it's always these union lawyer types or something.
Right. And then you were like this person next to me.
Well, and then what happened was apparently the phrasing ended up coming out of my mouth, union lawyer. She is a person with a law degree who works for a union-backed think tank. But boy, did one of the Democratic representatives come right out and say, "Are you a union lawyer?" "No, I'm not." And it was like I had told this horrific lie or something in front of Congress because
I'll bet she wrote this regulation because, it's like turning a glove inside out. No, that's not a glove. That's, that's the gal. That's the kind of mentality. No, I'm not a union lawyer. I just happen to work for them. Wait, what did you just do there?
All because I was trying to be polite and not curse.
You were magnificent. I watched that with rapt interest. She's like a coiled reptile. Yes.
Yeah.
She and I had to share a microphone. I remember they didn't have enough microphones that day, and
everything, body language. You could tell Kim just didn't even want to. You wanted to shoulder away from her.
You have to press a button to make the microphone come on. So when I was finished, I would always turn it off, so she would get confused about whether it was on. I was doing a little subterfuge there.
You should have thrown your shawl over her and just said, "We're going to put this one under wraps."
I'll never live down that I had to wear the shawl all through the hearing. The reason why was I got off the train and I got something on my blouse right in the middle of my top of my blouse, and I went in Union Station and got a Tide pen and I tried to take care of it and it turned it into a giant bullseye right between my boobs, and I'm like, well, what do you do about this in front of Congress? So I went through the whole hearing wearing my shawl from the Gap. That is what happened and why I'm wearing a shawl.
Good work. Good. I would never have guessed that until this moment. Literally.
So
Thank
when
you.
the PRO Act had the comment zone or the comment period of was it 60 days as well, I believe, right?
The PRO Act was legislation, so it does not get public comments. It was the United States Labor Department regulation that had the public comment period.
And are they always 60 days?
Oh, I don't know how old.
Okay, well, but should people be, because I remember that there was a bunch of bots in there.
Oh, yeah.
Bunch. Like they had to go through before they found comments and remove all of what was bots. Who knows that some of the good comments weren't even removed as bots, but should people be commenting?
100% yes. And we'll be filing, obviously, a comment with Fight for Freelancers. We're encouraging everybody to file comments. My understanding from having gone through this at the federal level and having talked to a bunch of people much smarter about this kind of thing than I am here in the state of New Jersey is the purpose of the public comments is multifold. First, you want to actually get into the record what a disaster this idea is. You actually want to say out loud, this is very problematic. Get it into the public record that the state is on notice, that this is bad. But secondly, what happens after the rule is finalized, if they choose to go through with it and finalize it, those kinds of public comments can be important for everything from future legislation to future litigation. So the flooding of the public comments with independent contractor voices is going to become very, very important here in the state of New Jersey.
So a follow-up thing. So obviously everybody in New Jersey can do this. Can people outside the state, one?
I have seen nothing that says you can't. It's a guy's email address you have to send it to. I'll get it for you so we can put it up on the screen.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other thing I was wondering is if you're a business, like we saw happen to many writers, and you hire people from New Jersey, and this is going to affect you because whenever we've talked about California 5 or AB 5, we talk about how making them toxic overnight. Is there a way to get those companies to really heavily push that they write in? Saying, listen, if you do this, we're not going to do any work with New Jersey. There's 49 other states we can hire people from and other countries, and we just won't be working with any of your people anymore. I don't know. I'm just trying to think as like somebody, even if I'm so hardcore to be a union person, which I'm not, but I mean, if I was, wouldn't I take that very seriously? We're not going to create jobs. We're just going to kill off 1.7 million. I believe I read in one of your articles.
American Action Forum estimated it at just shy of 1.7 million people earning independent contracts
in just New Jersey.
Well, we have a high population state. We're over 9. What are we at? 9.5 million people, I think now, something like that.
And I couldn't find if that included gig workers.
Good question.
You have another million in gig workers.
As we know, at the federal level, there's been GAO reports there's been all kinds of reports about this. There's like 7 different definitions for what is an independent contractor, a self-employed person, a non-employer firm. Like they use all this different lingo. And
we've found 28 synonyms for independent contractor.
Yeah, it's hard to figure it out. But suffice it to say, it's a lot of honking people. And even if it's just one, it's wrong. I put it in the private chat, Steve. The email address for the guy, his name is David Fish.
At david.fish at DOL.
Can I put the whole comment?
Yeah, that's public knowledge, and that's where they want to send comments.
That's a published, right? Kim's right.
So look, you guys, if it doesn't even matter if you live there. I mean, maybe it does, or maybe they don't post it, but still write in, because like I said earlier, this could affect this. California was a model. It's dying off, at least for gig apps. They can't sell it anymore. You can't sell a failure to everybody. You have to find some real morons to sell a failure to. And now I feel like this is the more hybrid new version of AB5, enhanced, as you said, or worse, as I say. And now they'll start selling this off to other states and whatnot, or trying to push this. Let's get this in your state. So write in. I mean, I put it all there. I broke it into 2, you guys, but they're 2 in a row. You'll see the 2 comments. This one right here. And for the audio podcast listeners, the email is david@fish or david.fish. And so it's david.fish@dol.nj.gov. So, and I'll put it in the show notes for the audio podcast listeners too, because email them. Say you're an independent contractor. Say that you do business. Say you have friends and family in New Jersey and that you're also one. Bring up as many things as you can. Speak from your heart. Say what you want to say, but make a comment on it, because this is the livelihoods of the people in New Jersey and could potentially be the livelihood of you if your state likes what they see in New Jersey.
And I would add to that, Steve, call your member of Congress and tell them to support the Modern Worker Empowerment Act. Tell them you want this all across the country to stop. This has to stop. Congress has to protect our fundamental freedom to earn a living. That is what is being attacked. That is what they can do to try and help.
We need to 1319, House Rule 1319, really needs something to establish the federal government's control over interstate and international trade, and push out, at the very least, without even removing any state powers. They should be allowing interstate and international commerce in independent contracting and freelancing. There is no reason for the governors of California and New Jersey to be chasing customers across interstate lines. Period. Full stop.
HR 1319 is the Modern Worker Empowerment Act. Yeah.
Yes, I've read that, but it does not apply. It's just
easier to remember. Modern Worker Empowerment Act, if you're listening.
Yeah. Does not apply to interstate trade.
Give them a shout. I know they're, when they move that bill, they'll mark it up. I'm sure they're looking for ideas.
So the Modern Worker
Kavin
Empowerment
is
how is it? That's just Google National Modern Worker Empowerment National.
I think you can. Yes, you can Google it.
I got it right here.
Yeah, it's there. The now has a number. It has. It came out in February with that one, and it's very short. This one's actually easy to read. It's triple spaced, page and a half.
So,
2 pages.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of co-sponsors on it yet, but don't let that scare you. Congress has been very busy with a lot of other things, as anybody who watches the news is well aware. We have been told numerous times that, just wait a minute, we're coming. They just haven't gotten to it yet.
So, Kim, I mean, again, I have to go back to the AB5 thing. Like, if nothing there worked, and I'm sorry it didn't. I mean, I'm not sorry it didn't. I'm just sorry to say to anybody that thinks there was any positive, there wasn't. What is the hope in your state? They kill off 1.7 million, potentially more if the gig app platform workers are not included. They kill off 1.7 million jobs, then what? Because if they're not making new jobs that are going to be union jobs, which I don't want, many people don't want, but even if they did and people aren't taking them or whatever, what is the hope there? How is that a win?
The MO that I see again and again is they get something in a couple of states, then they can try to push for it at the federal level. So it's a long game that they're playing on trying to shove this through to everybody. And you can tell me, Mike, if you think that's wrong, but that seems to me the way these people roll. They go to places where they think they can get it through. They get it through in whatever way they think they can make it happen. And then they roll it to other states and then try to push for it when they get an opportunity at the federal level. Is that right?
I agree with you completely, but I took it one step further. I think they're fighting for diversity of laws and conflict between the terms, because they're going to then go to the highly regulated largest companies and require them to demand Congress pass a uniform national bill, which will of course be written by the same people that have written the NELP stuff, the model legislation for killing independent contracting careers. And they will demand that bill, and it will have all the worst provisions, the felonies, the exceptions, the impossible provisions like the New Jersey bill has, and they will all be in that draft. So That to me, because they need a way to transfer from the blue states to the red states, and they can only do that with Congress because their position with the red states is really weak.
Well, they'll also have a conflict with right to work, won't they?
Oh yes, but
I mean, a big one. Like the
they're-
red states will just say
they're
no.
tackling right to work now. So they won in Missouri, so they repealed it.
So John Lopez making a lot of comments here. He was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he had brought up the PRO Act again. And I even paused and said, "Wait a minute." I said, "I thought we were done with this thing. I thought we killed it." I remember my words. I thought we killed it 3 times dead, buried it, burnt it, and then buried it again. And he's like, "No." So I mean, to you two, if that became a thing right now, given the new administration, what would be the likelihood that it went through? Considering the last one couldn't.
It's not if it becomes a thing. They reintroduced it already, and massive amount of co-sponsors from the Democratic Party signed on in support.
More than the last time?
In fact, they flipped Mark Kelly. Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, Democrat of Arizona, is one of the 3 senators who stood up for us in the last session. He came out and said specifically he didn't want to see the legitimate independent contractors getting hurt. And we all thanked him for being an honest operator. And then what happened is Vice President Harris went looking for a running mate in the most recent presidential election, and he was on the short list, and the unions attacked him because he did not support the PRO Act. So he did not get the vice presidential nomination. Tim Walz from Minnesota got it instead. And then when the PRO Act was just reintroduced in the new Congress, Senator Warner came out in support of it and said he changed his mind. The gun specialist, right? The guy who can shoot a gun perfect, right? I guess maybe you guys don't remember that little play. But
Tim Walz?
Tim Walz went out hunting.
Oh,
And he was like pointing the barrel at his eye, checking to see if it was low. He had never shot a gun in his life.
I said Mark Kelly, right? There was also Mark Warner stood up for. I was specifically talking about Mark Kelly there, just to make sure I'm not mixing up my marks.
No, but it was supposed to be it was at a time during the election when they were kind of portraying him as very weak, and he went out to try and show you how he's a hunter. And he's like, and he was asking while they're filming, he's like, I just put him in here, right? And he had like spoken about how he's this master of guns kind of thing. And he does this all the time on the week. I'm like, this is your first time with a gun in your hand. So what I said, that's what I thought. So, I mean, I don't know. To find the fact that that's who they thought was the better choice.
I was just very disappointed in Senator Kelly. He seemed to have hung
that's one that's flipped. Aren't there new members who aren't there more members now who would be against it?
Well, we lost the 3 who protected us were Senator Mark Kelly, and Senator Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona, and Senator Mark Warner in Virginia. Kyrsten Sinema left the Senate. Mark Kelly, they flipped him. To the best of my knowledge, Senator Warner still has our backs.
Right.
But the bill is not going to get through, in my opinion, with the Republicans in charge. And even if it did,
that's what I was thinking.
When President Trump was in office last time, I don't think he explicitly ever came out and said he would veto it, but it was indicated that it would not survive. Oh, Karen Anderson's right. I forgot. Well, Joe Manchin originally was with us on the PRO Act, but he eventually did co-sponsor it. He went to the White House, had some kind of a meeting with President Biden. I don't know what they worked out, but Manchin did ultimately co-sponsor it. But he was helpful to us in other ways.
So, Mike, I mean, what would if you guys had to bet the farm, you had to bet everything you had one way or another, and this PRO Act vote happened in 1 hour right now, and everybody had to vote. You couldn't escape. What would happen?
President Trump would fail. My belief is President Trump would veto it, even though I can't prove it. I believe it.
I believe he would. He has some very pro-independent contractor legislative experts that work for him. I can't imagine that he would sign it. I can't imagine it. No. It might pass the House. I would say not pass the House. Doubtful in the Senate. We have a lot of what are popularly called rhinos, which is inconsistently allied Republican members of Congress and senators. But I think there would be such an uproar if it actually came to a vote. I think you would see a bare win in both chambers.
I think the most telling thing I can say, building on what Mike just said, that President Trump has some folks that we think are good around him on this issue. The Deputy Secretary of Labor is Keith Sonderling, who has stood up for app-based drivers, I believe, in the past. I think he wrote the thing that they just came out and said to apply, or he had something to do with it. But also the labor solicitor job in the Department of Labor, that one is Jonathan Berry, Berry. He wrote the Project 2025 chapter on the Department of Labor, including the only 2 pages I read, which were pages 590 and 591, which are about independent contractor policy. And it states explicitly that we would like to be protected, that we should be protected. And it basically lays out what appears to be happening now. If you look at the those 2 pages in Project 2025, what they outline for congressional legislation is pretty much what we see in the Modern Worker Empowerment Act. What it lays out for the Department of Labor to do is, we think what's about to happen based on everything we've seen coming out of the U.S. Labor Department. It seems to be that is what they are implementing. And while, again, I have not read all of Project 2025, I've only read those 2 pages. That is the correct thing that should be happening to protect independent contractors. Right.
And I agree with, I think, Kim's earlier observation that Trump is basically, in a very low-key way, that organization is signaling, we got a lot on our plate, love to get to you. I think that's, it'll take time because we've got some even more urgent threats than this one. But I think that in itself, what Kim said about that, and I believe that's a true statement on the speaker's part, is that any noise that any independent contractor anywhere can make and make an impression is part of the general uproar that Congress has personally. They asked me for this, and they basically said, don't lobby them anymore. Go out and find your own uproar. I think they're actually, Congress is looking for more backbone. And I think that independent contractors, with their noise and their uproar and their stories and videos, can produce.
Yeah.
Sorry, my dog Ginger agrees with you.
I was just going to say, you got a new dog.
Yeah.
No, she's an old dog. She turned 13 in February. She's an old girl.
Okay. I thought you had another dog then too.
Does she go by the
too? But Blue died a few years ago of cancer. Yeah. Sorry, Mike. Ginger interrupted you there.
Bill by the project, or does she bill by the hour?
But I mean, again, I guess I understand there's people who have money behind everything. So, and it all comes down to money all the time. But I just don't see how, let's kill 1.7 million jobs during super hard times in this country. What are we going to replace them with? Nothing. It's going to be awesome. Check this out.
They want the independent, they want the rideshare drivers. They want all the construction work, any of those things where they have organizing. They want those jobs. The rest is just a rounding error.
They want them for what, though?
They cannot feel.
They want to create their own jobs where you make less and there's a union guy in your pocket? I don't know. Most of the people I know, even if they haven't worked for a union, even people not my age in their 30s and 40s are like, I'd never work for a union. They already know.
Well, the unions, that's the actual problem they're trying to solve. You're asking, what is it they're trying to do? The actual problem that the union organizers, not the rank and file, most rank and file people, you talk to them, they think this is nuts. I've talked to a lot of them. There's not a ton that agree with this. A lot of union people have jobs and then they work a side hustle on the weekends. You know, this is common sense for most people. But the union organizer, the people at the top, they have an actual problem, which is that union membership is at an all-time low in this country, and it dropped really far this time to the point that they got really scared. The way I think of them is they're like a drowning person who, if you've ever taken a rescue swimming class, they train you don't come at them from their face because they'll reach their hands around you, climb on top of you. You got to come at them. That's how desperate they are. They take you down with them. That's what this feels like to me, is they know they're not going to survive unless they do something drastic. Because, I mean, you look at the Gallup research alone. The Gallup research shows about 2/3 of Americans say they'd prefer to be their own boss. And it also shows that while about a little more than 70% of Americans support the existence of unions, they say we support unions existing. That same research shows 80% of the employees who are non-union, people who are eligible to join a union right now, 80% of them either say they don't want any part of it or they are at best neutral on the subject. So the actual problem the unions are trying to solve is they can't get enough people to join and become dues-paying members voluntarily. So they're trying to figure out how to do it by government force. That's the actual problem they're trying to solve, to answer your question.
And I support that. And I also add, in my personal experience dealing with people of all ages, that almost every American, and I'm going to talk at the more than 90%, foresees the time when they might consider independent contracting, either when they're retired or they want to do something but not leave the workforce. They want to make more money. They want to, even kids in college realize, hey, if I drop out, I can code Ruby on Rails and, like all kinds of things. It makes a lot more money than anything else I've heard of. So I think that public affinity for working for yourself, being your own boss is at the over 90%.
I actually, there's some studies now about Gen Z, and I was just working on a story it hasn't been published yet, about franchising. They're seeing a surge in young people coming in and wanting to buy franchises for that exact reason. They grew up in the age of TikTok and YouTube and influencers, Instagram. They have seen, it's been pounded into their head on these social channels that anybody who's anybody and makes any money is their own boss.
Exactly.
This message they've been force-fed since they could crawl on these screens. And so this is, Gen Z is a very, very possibly the most entrepreneurial generation we've seen.
I agree. Most of them have seen somebody on their dorm floor get rich with some sort of AI program or some sort of little game wrinkle or something, and they're all like, "Hey, man, I could do that. I don't need this other stuff."
I'm going to make a bold comment here because my son is just at the end reach of Gen Z. He's about to go to college this year. He's a lot more focused than a lot of his friends. So my one comment about the Gen Z people, though, is they need to become very unlazy. I mean this. They are extreme.
That was your dad voice. Your voice actually changed into dad voice when you said that.
Well, my son isn't, but I've seen them. They're the laziest people I've ever seen in my life.
You should see what the enthusiasm that young troops come with out of boot camp. That's all learned behavior.
I'm just saying they don't seem to care about anything.
It's a game. They're human beings like all the rest of us, and what they want to do is do something that they're proud of and that gets results.
Yeah, I'm just saying that maybe they were, the pandemic didn't help anybody. They suffered through that and their schooling and everything else. So I don't know. They just seem very focused on not going out and doing things in crowds very much. They're very homebodied. They're on their phone. We might as well just literally stitch a phone in when they're born to their hand because it's always in there. Even when they're not using it, they're walking around with it in a mode like it's on. It's like, remember phone clips and then putting it in your pocket? They just carry it in their hand all the time. It's so weird to me. Like,
it's addiction. If you read that, there was a big bestseller. I don't know if it's still on the list, but The Anxious Generation, great book about we actually changed their brains with these devices, and now it's like trying to get somebody off crack or something to pull them off of these things.
So I agree. Mike's right. They'll find their way and whatnot, but they're probably best off being independent contractors anyway, because, and I'm not claiming the end of the world and Will Smith and in the robot movie, but at the same time, AI is coming for their jobs.
Old jobs.
I'm just saying they're going to have to get creative. Well, here it becomes part of the problem too. You start a career by working for somebody, maybe salary, maybe hourly, whatever. You learn a trade, you learn a skill, you learn some other skill sets, you work for some other people, you make a niche of your own, you create an independent contractor business of your own. And then, as I told John, and when we were talking, that sometimes people get innovated and go beyond that niche. You're going to take away innovation if you take away the independent contractorship.
Yes.
Because why would anybody in an employment go above and beyond? I know you probably should, but I think that you learn at a certain level. I'm punching a clock and that's it.
They will take compensation on the gray market. That's what happened in the communist countries. That's how trade continues. People will still trade for things. They need to do things. That's a basic urge. People don't, grow up and live an entire life sucking their thumb and waiting for a meal to come to them. People, they get it, and the hungrier you get, the more get up and go you have. So they'll do a deal.
As we're winding it down, Karen Anderson's comment came in at the perfect time right here, because I do think this is a thing too. We're focusing on bringing these back, manufacturing, all this other stuff. And I get on some level, we don't want to have everything manufactured out of, I've even heard some things like, dude, do you really want them making the motor for your car? Because
you should see
there could be a kill switch on that thing. Like, who knows? My point is, we're trying to bring it back. But so Trump brings in a labor secretary who is in bed with union bosses.
Well, the real boss of the USDOL is Keith Sonderling. He is the real boss. He knows where the levers are. He knows what has to happen. He has direct contact with the president. She's Chavez de Remer is on the cabinet, but she doesn't know. She's still learning what has to happen and going around and greeting people in the branches. She is not the operative intelligence in that. She's very smart, but the operative intellect in that organization. That's Sonderling. That's why he's there, deputy.
Mm-hmm. Well, but I guess Julie Sue had a role too, and she never was able to do anything. She couldn't even get nominated or whatever. I don't even understand how she was able to sit there.
Remember that time in Congress, and Congressman Kiley asked her how she voted on Prop 22? She was the head of labor in head of the labor department, whatever the EDD they call it there in California. It was the biggest brouhaha in the history of history. And she said, "Oh, I don't remember how I voted." It was incredulous. It was.
So we're gonna wind this down at this point. And here's what I want to know from both you guys, though, is that okay? If they want to, these stories are all around everywhere. I see Kim writing articles about it. Mike's talking about it. I'm talking about it. I'm seeing the articles. They include everybody that would be an independent contractor. The New Jersey one is about no carve-outs. Maybe that changes, maybe it doesn't, but I agree with Kim. Carve-outs shouldn't exist anyway, because that dumb law shouldn't exist. So there shouldn't have to be carve-outs, because that law should never be a law. What is the concern level? Because I don't want it to appear like you're not too concerned, but if you're not, you're not. But if you are, I think people need to hear that as we call it in the YouTube world, the hook.
I am highly 100% of my income here in the state of New Jersey is being an independent. I'm a freelance writer and editor. So I am highly concerned. What I also am is a lot wiser about this than I was in 2019. And I have a lot more friends, both in Trenton and in Washington, D.C. And when this got announced, it wasn't just me trying to figure out who to call. It was pretty high-powered people calling me and saying, are you still around and are you ready to go? So I think we are in a better position to fight than we were. I think what's happening at the federal level will be good for us. It's going to create some noise it's going to create opportunities to get this into the press that we didn't have going on last time. And I mean, we named it Fight for Freelancers for a reason. I sure as hell have my fists balled up and ready to go. They want to fight. Let's freaking fight.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. If it comes down to it, let's fight.
And I echo Kim's total determination. We can beat this. We've got the biggest army. We've got 76 million people we've just acquired over the last 2-3 years. We've got 1 million podcasters are now independent contractors in that part of their life. That's a huge thing. That's 10% the size of all the union members in the country. And we acquired them and nobody even mentioned it. Like they just came on base. I think what we have to do, I would love anybody who wishes, Kim, Steve, anyone who wishes, I think we need to propose an objective test so that everybody can know in advance how to become an independent contractor. And I think the federal government needs to take the lead in allowing us to do that. We are this is an elected republic. And I think we have the right to elect our status in the law. And I don't think that it has to be one or the other. I think there needs to be room for moonlighting. So an objective.
And I would even say to the people, like you said, Mike, I would even say to the people who just have a job right now, but in 5 years might need to moonlight.
Or vice versa.
Look ahead of time.
I was a staffer for 10 years. I've been an independent contractor for 22, very happily. You never know. Market downturns happen. I may want to go take a full-time job again. Who knows? I don't know. You don't know. The point is, these are all pathways to achieve the American dream, and we shouldn't have to fight our own government to keep them all open.
Exactly.
They shouldn't be allowed to shut any of these pathways down, and that is what they're trying to do with self-employment.
And it's not the government is just the tool that special interest groups are trying to use for their own purposes, not for the public's purposes.
I have no problem with people who want a full-time job. I grew up, my parents.
Oh, I don't either. I've had them. I've had salary. Salary is its own nightmare.
I may have them in the future. Whatever. Yeah. You might have both at the same time, a side hustle and a full-time job, whatever. We are a nation of liberty and the pursuit of happiness. We are all about different strokes for different folks, right? Mm-hmm. This flies in the face of that. This is the antithesis of what it means to try and achieve the American dream in whatever way works best for you. And that is why it is so outrageous to me and why I will be raising my voice very loudly in the coming days to try and make sure that this stops.
So, the one thing everybody should write in, again, the email's up there, and I'll move it into the show notes. As soon as this is done, I'll move it into the show notes for all the people who watch after the working hours are done tonight.
Yep, into the state of New Jersey, into the public comment. Tell them to stop what they're doing with the independent contractor rule, and call your member of Congress and tell them to support the Modern Worker Empowerment Act. There's a hearing next week. It's supposed to come up. Tell them you want to see their name as a co-sponsor on that bill.
Yeah. Okay. So and they can look that up. Just see, you could just Google.
All you got to do is
your zip code,
call and say Modern Worker Empowerment Act, HR 1319, if you can remember it, but they can figure it out from Modern Worker Empowerment Act.
Yeah. I'm just trying to give people as many links as possible to, how people are. What, I have to do something?
Yeah, if you go to the website of the U.S. Congress, it'll let you type your zip code in, and it just takes you right to your representative's email address.
Yeah. Okay. So, I know, guys, that always seems like a little bit of extra work, but if you're in New Jersey, you should absolutely do all of these things. If you're not in New Jersey, I'm going to do it as soon as this is over, just to see what happens. Maybe they email me back and say, you don't live there. You can't do this.
We should give a shout out in New Jersey to my congressman in the NJDOL. His name is Tom Kane Jr. He, one of the first co-sponsors of the Modern Worker Empowerment Act. He has been wonderful. on this issue, and every single lawmaker in New Jersey needs to follow his lead, because that man understands what's going on with this policy area, and he is taking action to try and protect us all. And I, for one, as his constituent, am extremely grateful.
This is a weird comment too. Truckers are always, I know a bunch, and I'm wondering, because they're always needed. Why would we need fewer at the ports?
I think they're talking about driverless vehicles.
Oh, okay. Which isn't real. I talk about that all the time, guys. You can check it out.
It's not real yet, but it'll happen.
Right. I mean, but Derek Khosrowshahi, just to put in some perspective, the CEO of Uber has in 2019 said 2020 was going to be full autonomous, 2021 full autonomous. He did this for 4 years. This year, he said by 2040, 80% of delivery jobs, 2040, and he's not even talking about rideshare, 80% of delivery jobs will be done by those little igloo coolers on wheels. Okay, so you're telling me that the autonomous coolers that deliver food and have controllers, 80% in 15 years?
How does that work outside of a city? Like somewhere I live, there's more bears than people in my town. Like, how does that work in a place like that?
The only place that ever made sense to me was putting it on college campuses, because drivers don't want to run around campuses just have it pull up to a hall with a bunch of food. And
I feel like a coyote would get it out here.
I mean, people in California steal these things. They throw them in their trunk. They take them out to the woods. They throw them in a river. They leave
by
them.
2040, it's going to have laser guns on it, Steve. You got to think big.
They have a red flag that kids chase out into the road.
Great. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it might as well say free candy too. So while we're at it, but
I'm really grateful, Steve, that you let us come on here to talk about this, because it's enraging. The word at this point is enraging. It's enough. It's beyond enough with these people already. They need to leave us alone to work and earn a living. They need to leave us alone. It's too much.
Otherwise, we're the country that's supposed to be the beacon of this. And if you take that away, it's just like saying, whoops, well, you know what? Everybody work in a factory. That's it. But I really want to be it doesn't matter what you want. Just go work. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not down with any of this. So of course, Kim, I'm always happy to put these pieces out. And the audio podcast gets tremendous downloads. And these type episodes do very well in the audio podcast, even out of country. These podcasts that we do perform better out of country than my weekly podcast, because people out of country want to hear this stuff because they don't get to hear it. That's surprising to me. Well, news is very regulated outside the country. Podcasts are completely unregulated. There's no regulation in the audio podcast world. Interesting. So look, at the end of the day, what you're going to hear is we have to do this to stop misclassification. What we have seen in California is that the primary effect is that this hurts independent contractors. So don't believe the hype. Everybody agrees it's wrong to misclassify employees, but it's sure as hell also wrong to throw independent contractors out of their businesses. And that is what we're trying to stop. That is what is happening. And that is what we are fighting for, to stop that. And Mike, what are your final words here?
There's a simple test for independence, and it's the volition, the wish, the will, the determination of the individual to be an independent contractor. The relationship is not between the buyer and the seller. In this case, it's the wish to do projects, to do finite length work, to do their work on their terms, and they get to choose if they want to work that way, or if they want to work in manufacturing or a straight job part-time. And that's fine. The individual in this country is easily able to take on that responsibility if the federal government and the states will simply allow them to exercise it. We can do this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of at my wit's end with all this. I mean, we're going through some things in Colorado here with Uber, and our state's just a nightmare mess. We're not even going to go there because it's a whole nother book. But I mean, we are just doing things where I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, I'll get, since I can't say it often, I'm going to say it right here, at least, that we passed a law known as I don't, it has its bill title and whatnot, but it's known here by everybody as LGBTQ 13 plus. At age 13, you can be removed from your house and your parents if they don't call you by the pronoun or name that you tell them to. And that's a law now.
Yeah.
There are enforcement teams that will come and help you leave your house and physically stop your parents from being involved. So I think I live in a state where I'm like, I don't even know where I am anymore.
I don't have kids, but if anybody tried to take my dog, let's just say I'm better at a shotgun than Mike Waltz, whatever his name, Tim Waltz is.
Yeah. But yeah,
I can't speak to kids. I don't have kids, but
thank you, John, and everybody else, Trevor, everybody in the chat for leaving comments, and also everybody that watches this on the replay, because I know a lot of people are out grinding and working, and a lot of times in the evenings this gets watched. If you're watching this on the replay, please leave comments below in this video on the audio podcast. And even if these guys don't see it right away, if there are specific questions to these guys, I'll get the answers if they don't see it, and I'll bring them back to you. But also in the show notes, you can find Kim and Mike's Twitter links. If you're on Twitter, great way to get in contact with them. If you're not, I'll put Kim's, I said it in the beginning. Substack. I always forget the name of that.
It's called freelance.
It's because it confuses me. Still, like I get it, but I don't really get it.
Newsletter, basically.
Yeah, I know. It's just strange, but I like it. But so Kim has a Substack where you can go read all her material. Mike has New Jobs America. He has the Be My Own Boss podcast, and he has his Twitter page as well. So we're all you can contact any of us, and you're not going to get a runaround. You're going to get an answer from us. You might not
if you're in California, go on Facebook and find Freelancers Against AB5. Karen Anderson runs that group. She's great.
Fight for freelancers.
Everybody has seen John Lopez in the comments here. He rocked it in the Illinois legislature. Like a week ago? That's what
we talked about a couple weeks ago on the podcast.
Yes, he took names. He was great. And we got in Minnesota. Brittany Vanderbilt is fighting like hell for independent contractors up in Minnesota. There's a lot of people working on this who don't get paid to do it. We're just people. We're regular people who are pissed off. Come and help us fight and win. Yeah.
It's the American spirit.
Damn right it is.
And right into those, again, I'm going to move everything that even Kim was providing for links. I'm going to put it all in, and along with all their contact, but I'm going to put it all into the show links, including posting a comment to the 60-day comment period.
Karen Anderson is commenting Minnesota. Did I say the wrong state? Britt Vanderbilt is in Minnesota, if I said the wrong state.
Yeah.
I get a little fired up.
I thought you said Minnesota. No, I'm with you. I thought you said Minnesota. I don't know.
I get a little fired up. These people get my blood pressure up.
But you guys, these two people in my opinion, they're as knowledgeable as more so than many of the people who will sign on to these things. And I speak about this all the time, how, you can't blame people too much because like a senator has to deal with a million things. Of course, they don't know about every one of them. They have 5 staffers that read on every one of them, the briefs, and then they hand them what's going to be on the floor that day. So they're kind of just already skimmed notes and getting bullet points on something. And then if they need to dive in, if it gets too big, they get into it a little more, but sometimes they don't even know about this stuff.
It's not even a question. The day that I testified before Congress in 2023, Representative Bobby Scott of Virginia, who was I believe the primary sponsor of the PRO Act in the House of Representatives, was trying to read off an index card or something and ask a question of the woman from NELP, Laura Padine from NELP. And he couldn't read off the card well enough. He clearly did not understand the difference between AB5 and ABC. Didn't know he just couldn't get it out of his mouth, couldn't figure out. And she kept saying, "I'm sorry, I don't understand." And he kept trying again and getting it wrong. And if you watch the video of that hearing, you just see me shaking my head. Like I'm trying to not be a jerk because I know I'm on a camera, like there's a camera on me, but I studied for like a week before I went to Congress to make sure and try to do my very best and make sure I had all my facts straight and try to get everything right. This is the guy who's actually making the laws, didn't know the difference between AB5 and ABC.
So everybody listening to the audio podcast, I'm going to put it in the audio podcast notes too. There's all these notes, all these links. And I want you guys, my hope is that you hit up these people. I mean, Kim doesn't mind on Twitter. Mike doesn't mind on Twitter. They'll reply to you. Hit them up, retweet, like their comments, get things out there. A like, a comment, a retweet, any of that helps something be seen more. Even if you don't have a following yourself, it does. It puts it more into the feeds. So do that. Check out their other links too. Lots going on here. And if you guys have any questions, please, questions, comments, concerns, into the comments, and we will make sure to get back to them. And thank you both for joining us, and thank you everybody for watching and listening. As always, the best guests, Mike and I. Mike now is a podcasting master on top of everything else, and he's got that podcast going. He's almost up to episode 50, guys, and that's no joke. That's for real. He's earned his stripes here. He's about to.
It's strictly done with duct tape and glue.
Well, don't belittle yourself.
You
and
should
Kim does Kim writes amazing things. I mean, so go even. I know a lot of people I talk to aren't on X, and a lot of things I see of Kim's are on X, and that's how I know to go to her Substack, because I'll see the link.
You can subscribe for free to the. It'll show up in your inbox for free.
Right, and that's my point. So I'm going to put one. Maybe I'll put a link to hers, or maybe I'll even put it to the article she wrote, Worse Than AB5 in California. That article. Sign up for her newsletter. I mean, look, I'm sure every one of you gets 100 junk emails a day. This isn't junk, so sign up for it.
I write like I talk. People tend to find it entertaining. My New Jersey accent comes through in the nouns and verbs, apparently. But
there are lots of groups out there. And again, write in. And if you're in New Jersey, care about this a lot.
Yeah,
now.
This is serious. The biggest takeaway from this whole thing is this is dead serious. They want independent contracting out of the state, and they are going to get it this way.
Not if I have anything to say about it. Let's go.
Thank you.
Fight for freelancers. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right. Be my own boss. Every one of us. Be my own boss.
So I won't say dates, because I don't like putting those out there, because they can affect people looking up things. But during this month, in the upcoming parts of the month, both Kim and I have our same year birthday. So happy birthday to us.
Yay, happy birthday.
I won't say what the days are, but they're still coming up in this month. But and we're both turning the same age.
29. Yeah. Amazing.
It's awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And please look into the links in the show notes, whatever platform you're watching on, and something's going to grab your attention. Take a look, check it out, get involved. Don't just cross your fingers and go, I hope this doesn't happen, because that will be a mistake. That's how mistakes are made. So that said, thank you, everybody, for joining. And
thank you, Steve. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you next time.
She was just a baby.